I feel like I'm generally good at math. Percentages, numbers, fractions, that kind of stuff just comes to me fairly naturally. So that's why I'm usually blown away when things like basic math cannot be figured out by the general public. And today we have an example that absolutely blows my mind that could have absolutely changed the landscape of the fast food world as we know it. I recently discovered that A&W back in the 80s had a burger that was marketed as the third pound double burger as competition to the other brand. And when they refer to the other brand, they're talking McDonald's. I'm not afraid to say it. They might be afraid to say it, but I'm not. Because, McDonald's had the quarter pounder. I recently stumbled upon this TikTok that explained why that marketing strategy failed. And, it's one of them slideshow ones, so I'm just going to, break it down for you. First one, it says, we introduced the 1980s third pound burger. And it goes on to explain that they spent a ton of money on advertising, but the burgers weren't selling. So they wanted to know why. So they went on and hired a research firm to find out why their new burger was flopping. And it's shocking. They found out that people were concerned about the high price of the burger or the price of the burger and said, why should we pay the same amount for a third pound of meat when we do for a quarter pound of meat? That should be your first red flag. That really blows my mind because if you look at a pie chart, what is bigger? Quarter or a third? I think people were looking at it the wrong way, personally. But then they go on to say it turns out that people thought 1/3 of a pound was smaller than 1/4 of a pound because the number 4 is bigger than the number 3. So it really turns out that people just have no idea what fractions actually mean. They just looked at the bottom number, the biggest number, and assumed that that was the biggest number. But if we actually do the math, 0.25 is smaller than 0.33. Weird how that works out. I'm not a mathematician, but I have general common knowledge. I did pass grade 5 math. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. The part I fail on math is where it comes to counting calories, and that's why I look the way I look. But legitimately, that little math fact scares me. I don't know if it's the education system failing us, and I don't know if it's just people not paying attention or what it is, but this is well before the new curriculum, and my mom works in the education system, and the new curriculum in Alberta is really messed up, but this is well before that. This is in the 80s. This is potentially 45 years ago, when common sense and common math were like the full-on curriculum. So I don't know what's happened or why the actual general public just doesn't understand fractions. And it's not like we were multiplying fractions. It's not like we were adding fractions. It's not like we were dividing them or making anything complicated with long division and fractions. It was a simple fraction. 1/4 or 1/3. What is the bigger number? Well, the 4 is the bigger number. No, sir. It's a fraction. Typically, when there's a bigger number on the bottom with a smaller number on the top, that would be the smaller number. I understand math is hard, but we all took grade 4 math. This might have been grade 6 math to some people, but either way, you usually don't drop out before grade 6. I only lived 2 years in the 80s. Not even a full year, actually. My first one, only a couple months. And maybe people weren't paying attention. And I have heard that the 80s were a wild time. The 90s were a different time. But maybe all the partying in the 80s and all the partying in the 70s, because if this was the case and they interviewed people on this, they would have been born in the 70s. Maybe all the partying in the 70s and 80s just removed all the brain cells that it took for basic math. And if that was the case, we might be looking at A&W being the powerhouse on every corner of every major city instead of McDonald's. Part of me is okay with that. The other part of me knows that A&W breakfast is superior to McDonald's. But I often wonder, what would this world look like where A&W dominated the market? It's an interesting thought. That's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Take some math refreshers. It's probably going to be good for you, and probably good for your bank account. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Bye.